Well, hello and welcome to AIM in Practice, where we talk about life as a practitioner, wellness in general, and what it means to practice. Today I'm talking with Kathleen, also known as Kate. Now, Kate is a seasoned massage therapist with a little over 15 years of experience in a wide variety of modalities, and she's passionate about helping her clients achieve a much deeper mind-body connection by treating them in a natural, rewilding setting. In her free time, Kate enjoys activities like bushcrafting, coaching burlesque, which is a quite interesting conversation, practicing yoga, vinyasa in particular, and raising socially conscious children and grandchildren. Now, in this episode, we talk about a lot of things as usual, including the shenanigans of the massage industry in general, the importance of taking care of oneself through nutrition, this idea of rewilding, which again is super fascinating, and the need for practitioners to take personal responsibility for their self-development in order to be a more effective healer. So with that, let's jump in. So welcome, and Thank you. We'll start the way we always do, and that's just tell me a little bit about your history. What got you into the world of wellness?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so the easy answer is my family. The complicated answer is my mother was a master herbalist, and I had horrible growing pains. I was like 4'11" and as wide as I was tall. And I went from that over a 2-month period to 5'9" and maybe 110 pounds. So like I literally stayed in bed an entire summer.
Wow.
Through that summer, my mom would put me on the floor and massage me and use reflexology. And she used herbs to help with the pain and poultices and foments. And like just this woman was the most amazing human being. And so I think I was maybe 10 or 11 or so, and I had this dream, and it was like watching a series of photos, and I took that as like a prophetic kind of very intuitive, okay, I'm good with this, let's go with it. And I decided to make every single one of those things happen. And one of those things was modeling in Asia when I was young. I had this very specific flash of an image, and then I realized right before I went to Asia, it happened. And then I was looking at the cover of a textbook, and it's like every once in a while these images pop into my head, and it's like, bam, you're supposed to be there right now, lightning strikes. And so that's what made me take my first massage course. That's what made me take my first reflexology course. That's what made me literally now cut myself on my sweater got caught in a plant in the fall of 2021. My sweater got caught on a plant, and I turned around and I looked at it, and it was a wild rose. And I was like, that has no business being there. Oh, it's time. Okay. So I started my herbalism program, and it's been these crazy lightning strike moments inspired by my mom's love of there's a reason the universe is putting this in front of you. So just go with it. Uncoupled with a love of the freedom that it brings.
Okay. Let's talk about that freedom, because as soon as you said that, some part of me is like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And that's where I like to move into those curiosities. So yeah. From the sounds of it, you've lived your life pretty much fully by following signs that have fallen towards you. The wind, which it's working out great for me from everything I've heard so far. But tell me a little bit more about this.
The freedom.
The freedom. Yeah.
Well, you get to hang out with really cool people. When I started looking into herbalism. So I was born in 1976. So I came into the world in this amazing time where dirty hippies abounded. And my mom hung out with pretty much all of them.
Okay.
My mom used to have a psychic come out to the house all the time when I was a kid. And it was like, you travel around to people's houses drinking tea and make money. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I want to do that when I grow up. Oh! And then, when I started with reflexology, it was like, okay, so I get to work in a spa and I get to make a ton of cash. Because reflex came first. And it was like, okay, so I get to make a ton of cash. But so I don't have to work like that whole average work week. I don't have to do 80 hours a week and kill myself at a desk. I can see 4 clients 4 days a week and have the other 3 days a week to be free with my kids. And I can, I can book a party and I can make, enough money to pay my rent this month because that was where the economy was. And so I've always, my whole life through, done jobs where it's like minimum amount of effort, maximum amount of return. Yeah. And it's because I want to do stuff, because I want to travel, and I want to go and I want to be somewhere else, and I want to go rock climbing on Friday if I feel like it, and be able to empty my schedule and do that. So I've been caught between being like a 1950s housewife, like my mom raised me to be, and being this, I'm just going to go make enough money to do the thing I want to do. And then I'm going to go and do the thing I want to do. And then when I'm done that, I'm going to do something else.
How's that balance work out?
Oh, it's insane. It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't. My husband tells me I'm constantly 5,000 steps all over everything, everywhere, and never focused enough on one of them. And I'm like, yeah, babe, but I can't be like you. I can't do the same job for 25 years.
Right. And he does. Yes. He's very settled. Well, I mean, that's a good balance of energies.
Oh, he's perfect. He's exactly my polar opposite.
Right. And I think that's great in many cases. Right?
You have to have something that grounds you. Because I'm like, oh, shiny new technique. Let's go learn it.
Right.
And he's very much you have a booking at 6:00, right? Right. Okay. So not today then.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow.
And I think the opposite is true as well. Like I'm about as grounded as one can get.
Yes.
I have ideas, but I'll choose a path, an idea, and the Taurus that I am, I will head down and move in that direction pretty much indefinitely.
Yes.
It takes like a catastrophe or an act of God to veer me off that path. Yes.
My son is the same. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's like the needs of that type of energy is that sort of like, what's over here? What's this shiny object? And to kind of like distract.
Can I help you see the whole picture?
Yeah,
not just the single path you're on.
Yeah. So that balance is super important, right?
It is.
And so it sounds like your husband helps you with that balance, but is there anything else you do to maintain that balance in yourself?
Oh, I spend time in the green.
Okay.
Winter drives me crazy. I need green spaces.
Yeah.
So I own a dome, and my dome is my home. Okay. That's where my heart is. Inevitably, someday I will live in her, and that will be my full-time home. But for me, it doesn't matter what season it is, the practice of getting out to my dome and sitting in my swinging hammock chair and being in that kind of sacred geometry in nature, without noise, without EMF interruptions, without the world getting in my face and being in my space, that quiet silence, that chopping wood, that harvesting out of the garden, that in the wintertime just like cuddling up in front of the wood stove and just experiencing fire, like that meditative, I'm just going to stare in the fire for 5-6 hours. Right. That's finding those quiet spaces and eating like really, really good food. Like really good food.
So what is the difference in your personal experience between the two? Because before we started recording, you were mentioning like you can't do the city, right?
Oh yeah.
So if you were to contrast the version of yourself that exists within a city in reference to, maybe we'll use the word chaos or sort of like scatteredness,
completely,
versus the version of yourself that exists when you are in the country and
grounded and solid and calm and much, it's totally different.
Okay, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I'm a very big proponent of observing one's psychological, physical state depending on the environment.
Yes.
And I don't mean just like the physical environment of your house, but I mean like the environment outside.
Oh yeah.
Be it winter, spring, summer, whatever season. So let's talk a little bit more about your thoughts on how season and environment affects an individual, particularly within the context of something that I know you're passionate about, and this is this idea of rewilding. Right?
Yes. We are trapped in a zoo when we live in the city.
Yeah.
We're in the zoo. We are animals under glass. We are fenced in and caged in and stuck with other animals, and eventually we're all going to lose our minds, which I think is like endemic right now, is like everyone like COVID crazy is what I like to call it, because we were all so stuck together and we were all so isolated and we were stuck in our zoo behind our glass in our cage, not allowed to leave. Which a lot of people look at me and they're like, you feel like you were stuck in a cage? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, like I didn't work for weeks at a time. I sat on my butt in front of the couch and I ate the prescribed food and watched the prescribed TV and lived in the prescribed fear state. And that was how I was expected to survive. And then I would get in my car and drive for an hour and a half outside the city. And it's like you take off and shed the energy of the societal expectation, and you take off and you shed the agitation and the empathetic energetics that you constantly pick up from around you, and the static goes away from the electronics surrounding you and the buzz of the city and everybody else's energy and feelings that are like crushing you. If you're at all an empath and you live in a city, it's like every once in a while you have to get out of the cage before you go crazy. And I think that that's where my experience lies. When I'm in the green and I'm in the trees and I'm in that calm place and I'm listening to the river talk to me. And it sounds like so like woo woo.
No, I get
but
you.
It's the energetics of it. It's when I sit on my bridge and I look down at my feet in the water and I listen to what the creek has to say and I pay attention to the trees talking, and Grumpy Guts, the chipmunk, is yelling at me because I'm in his space again. All of the anxiety, and I've been diagnosed with anxiety disorder, which is crazy. I don't experience it when I'm in the green. I don't have anxiety when I'm in the forest. I'm not a liver person when I'm in the forest, but you put me in the city for too long and I start to get ramped up ever more and ever more. And the doom scrolling starts. And then it's like everything just kind of gets worse. So energetically, I think that humans need to escape from their cages. We need to get out of the zoo. We need to take off all of the societal expectations. We need to go poop in a bucket in the woods. We need to cook over an open fire. We need to scream at the trees. We need to lie in a hammock and let the wind rock us to sleep. And we need to rediscover how to be with ourselves. And I found that. I built that. And now I want everybody else to experience it and share it and be there in it and have it, because there's nothing, as a woman particularly, there's nothing like looking at the stack of wood that you just chopped going, yeah, I did that. And I didn't need anybody else and I didn't need anybody's permission and I did it safely and I can feel strong in my body and I can feel powerful and I can feel healthy and I can feel no expectations and no one is judging me, and all of this societal stuff that women, like this bowl of spaghetti in our brains that touches everything to everything else, it just shuts up. Like it just stops making noise and it's glorious.
So with your retreat center that it's going to be done this summer, right?
First phase.
First phase, okay. Is the idea behind it, I mean, I guess I'll ask a more broad question is, what is the idea behind it?
I want people to know what it's like to make their own food, to take it from the garden or the chicken coop and put it together and take that as a fundamental piece of knowledge and carry it home with them. Because we get caught up in scents and smells and tastes, and this is the way that our memories are formed. So I want you to remember the peace and that feeling of sanctuary that comes from being in the perfectly sacred geometry of a dome structure, because round structures are amazing. I want you to have that energetic experience and take that memory with you. And every time you make a loaf of sourdough bread, I want you to feel that same feeling. And every time you eat the kimchi that you now know how to make because you spent a weekend at the retreat center and you make it for yourself and you enjoy the probiotic food and you taste all of those delicious flavors and you experience that healthy your gut microbiome is completely, replenished, shall we say. I want you to have that. Close your eyes and be like, oh, that taste takes me back to that day on the farm when I hung out with really cool people and we did really cool things and we had really great deep conversations and there was none of the stuff getting in the way of that magic happening. I want to make magic for other people.
That's beautiful.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get all dorky now, but it's true. I want others to know the magic of what I found. And so I'm trying to build an individual stay that allows a person to explore what they need to explore. If they want a massage in the creek, we'll throw the massage table in the creek, we'll do a massage. One of my longtime guests, her favorite thing is when I put my aluminum massage table right in the creek. So I'm standing in the creek and she's listening to the creek and being in the creek, and she's essentially negative ion bathing while she gets her massage. She loves it. She thinks this is the coolest thing ever. I want everyone to know that.
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to know what it's like to sit in a hammock swing and get reflexology under a tree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I want everyone to know what it's like to feel the world disappear when you sit inside a sacred space.
Right.
I want everyone to know that. That's my whole purpose is I look at things and I go, oh, that is so cool. I would want to do that. Why can't I find that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to build it.
I think that's the best way to create is finding the thing that you most want and need in order to feel stable, fulfilled, happy in your own existence. And then knowing that you're not alone. There's other people who want that too. And if it's not built, then maybe
if
that's...
you cannot build it, they will come.
Yeah.
If you can't find it, build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
I looked at, this year we want to do like a teardrop bell tent. Mm-hmm. With a stargazer roof. Lotus bell tents are amazing. And they have one now that they make, and it's got like a PVC skylight in the top of the tent, and it's so cool. And so I want to get one because I want to add that because it's the same size, it's the same square footage interiorly as Beulah, but I hate square structures. I don't like squares. I like round structures. They're so much better for us as people.
I completely agree.
Oh my gosh, if we could all just please get out of the boxes. I want everybody out of the box. But we're looking at getting a bell tent, and I was looking and I was inspired by it by watching Living Big in a Tiny House. Because it's like I want to do crazy thing person's favorite YouTube channel. And so I was watching it, and Bryce has the tent that I want and this amazing setup. And I was like, oh, I would live there. I would stay there. Oh my gosh, I have to experience that. And then I started looking, and it was like the nearest Lotus Bell tent glamping experience to us is in Tucson.
Oh, okay.
And I went, what? No, that can't be a thing. I want that. And I don't want to travel to Tucson. I could just put that in my backyard. Yeah. So we last year started clearing the space in this beautiful big meadow that the dome sits in. I have space for 5 structures. And so we're talking about a couple of teardrop tents and a couple of yurts and maybe another dome or 2.
Cool.
And maybe like a big 30-foot dome so that we can do events and I can teach out of it, because I'd like to teach reflexology, and I'd like to co-facilitate Thai massage classes with some of my favorite teachers.
Cool.
But I think that having people come out of the city to the country and be fed a really amazing diet and do like an amazing like week-long immersion in a technique and have that full experience of like, no, I was healed while I learned it, so it can impact my practice that much more powerfully. I think that would be... Yeah, I have a lot of goals. I have a lot of dreams. I have a lot of crazy things I want to do. And all of it just centers around, I want people to stop feeling like they live in a box. Yeah. I want people to find the pieces of themselves that they don't know that they're missing. And I'm hoping that I can help them find it in a really awesome, wild space.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my experience is when I spend too much time in the city, the whole urban rest idea, like you were just describing, it certainly separates me from aspects of creativity that I simply can't tap into when I'm in the city.
Oh yeah,
no, not at all. And I've been following and interested in this idea of rewilding for a long time. What was his name? There was a guy who first came up with that term, rewilding. I can't remember his name, but it was years ago. He's got these big arm tattoos. At any rate, I've been interested in this idea of rewilding for, like, I don't know, probably 15 years now.
Yeah.
And when I first was introduced to the idea, it was like, well, that's dumb. Like, why do you need to rewild?
Why would I need that?
Why would I need... And that's, as a person who 15 years ago, I was wild, like I had spent, at that point in time, I without exaggeration, had spent more of my life living outside of the bush than I had spent living inside of a structure.
Yes.
That's just the way I grew up. Like summer, winter, you name it. I was outside day and night, right? So when I'm first introduced to this idea, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why is this guy trying to sell being outside? Like, that's just normal. But then, doing the normal life thing, like that's so far in my past that I would need rewilding.
Yes.
Perhaps. I mean, I still spend a fair amount.
I need the reminder of the parts of myself that I find in the woods.
Yes. I think that's a very important part is for the individuals who have never been there. Because I've met a lot who have left the city 3 times to go to another city. Yeah. So there's a large portion of the population who would be, let's go from ground zero. But I think there's a lot of individuals like myself and from the sounds of it yourself who are like, my life is in the city.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it's not
For now.
feasible right now to
For
leave
now.
the city for whatever reason. But still needing a space to go and just be
And escape.
And escape, right? Yeah.
And be safe in it. Last year, my girlfriend, who's very much a city slicker, and I, we were sitting in her tent trailer because her trailer abuts ours. We have, like I say, when you pull in, there's like the row of us that are the lifers, I guess. And then there's the rest of the wild, untouched, never used. We don't even know what to do with it, but there's 152 acres there. So we're going to figure something out. And then we were sitting there and one of the other residents came up and she pulled in and she's like, I think I saw a black bear. And we were like, okay, like, well, Lanny, my son he's napping in our trailer and we're just going to sit here and hang out. We have the dog. The dog will warn us if anything comes, it'll be fine. And I have this adorable little red heeler and her name is Roxy and she attacks everything on four legs, except apparently black bears. Apparently the black bear walking up the driveway made her curl up under mommy's feet and she would not move. So we're sitting in a tent trailer watching this bear walk up onto the road. And there's two ways that it could go. It could carry on and it could go off into the wild yonder, or it could walk down the driveway directly at my trailer where my son is sleeping.
Right, yeah.
My keys, incidentally, are sitting on the hood of my truck 45 feet away from me. And I'm stuck in a tent trailer with a dog that's terrified and another woman. And the shotgun is in the trailer with my son. So I'm like, I'm not starting my noisy truck. I'm not getting the word. Shh, nobody make a sound. So the bear walks up and then the bear checks out my trailer and then the bear goes and checks out the wood-fired sauna and then the bear wanders off the creek. And we're like, did he go to Beulah? Is it safe? Can we? Where is the bear? So now everyone is like standing like this, looking out their windows going, where is the bear? Where is the bear? Most people would not understand that if you just sit quietly and not be freaked out by the black bear the size of your car that just walked up the road, it'll probably be a little curious and then bugger off.
Yeah.
I would give my left arm to hang out over in our field because, of course, now we're looking at, okay, no, where did the bear go? So eventually we all get in the car, we all make it to our vehicles, we all get in the vehicles, we're driving around the property, we're checking it out. And I noticed that there's a path through the field down by Beulah. And I'm like, I wonder what that is. So I walk over and I'm like, moose track, deer track, fox track. Is that a wolf? That could be a wolf. That almost looks like a wolf track. And like the intersection of nature with the intersection of what's going on in the farm. It's like, this is a crazy adrenaline rush and people have to know this. You don't know fear until you've watched a bear walk up your driveway.
I would agree with that aspect of fear.
But it's awesome because afterwards we were like, but it wasn't really scary. It was more like, this animal is so majestic and so beautiful and so free. Like he's just, and of course it's terrifying, but he's just doing what he wants to do. And it's like, if I was that free to do what I want to do, if I could just meander about and do what I want to do, how would I feel?
Right.
And so I look at rewilding as, how can you safely experience the bear in the yard and yet know that you're safe and have the ability to take that fear and that feeling, because we experience our lizard brains. It's like the boss is the T-Rex, right? But how, like, what happens when you're actually afraid of something? How do you actually cope with that? Because for me, it was a complete system reset.
Yeah.
I had never been so scared in my life. And afterwards, my body was like, you are so alive. And it was like, I can't even describe it. It's like, how do you take the most afraid you've ever been? Because like standing in a tent trailer staring down a bear is pretty scary. But it was also an excellent reminder of how alive I was.
Right.
And I think that that's the whole point of rewilding, is doing things that terrify you and doing things that you've never been exposed to.
Interesting.
And doing things that are safe because you have a guide, but it gives you that ability to free your inner self. As opposed to meeting the expectations of what's happening outside.
I believe that when a person is in these natural environments, and whether it's on the farm or going for backcountry, it's almost impossible to dwell on the urban stuff, the life that you have in the city. Yeah, because that the existence that one experiences when you are deep in nature requires extreme presence.
Yes.
And the moment that your mind starts to wander, it's the moment you start to miss things.
Yes.
And miss things that could be hazardous and dangerous. It could be things like a bear that's around the next bend. It could be that. But it's also, missing the the things that add to the experience of the calming effect of nature.
Yeah.
When you are lost in your mind and thinking back to work, you're missing the fact that the symphony of nature is genuinely programmed into our DNA
Yes.
to cause us to relax. Like we know this very conclusively. The sounds of nature universally relax people.
Yes.
Right? So there's so many different aspects of being in the natural environment that insist upon that reset, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and looking back on it, the thing that got me the most is that the bear was walking up this way and all of a sudden the forest shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I noticed my dog, but I didn't notice that the bird song stopped and the squirrels stopped and the noise stopped. But looking back on it, I'm like, no, I think I was aware. And I think I do remember the hair in the back of my neck standing up right before, 1,500 pounds of predator walked into our garden. Like, it was just like, you never feel so alive as when you're in those situations. And I would not wish for anyone to come out to the farm and think that they're going to run into a bear. That's the first time in 7 years that we've had someone like that show up in the middle of September in the shoulder season when they're looking for berries anyways. Like it was, we should have expected that. And we had one grizzly who walked the property and we caught him on camera, but that was like in the depths of spring when no one was even on the land yet. But it's the adventure of knowing that they're out there, but never having seen them. We need to scare ourselves sometimes. And sometimes scaring yourself can be, I'm going to go have a wood stove for heat instead of a furnace. Sometimes scaring yourself can be, I'm going to go into that creek and I'm going to walk around barefoot for 20 minutes, but I might come out with a leech. First time my son got a leech, he was devastated. And I was like, oh no, watch, they foam. But I grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
I don't think that I ate food from a store until I was 8 or 9 years old. I think the first time that I relied on a grocery store, I was in my 20s. Because before that, we had a hobby farm and we raised our own cattle and we drank raw milk and we raised our own animals and I slaughtered chickens when I was 6. So for me, rewilding is I see this resurgence of homesteading people and everyone's so interested in this very agrarian kind of lifestyle. And it's like, you don't understand the kind of work that goes into it, but you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, that would be so amazing in a very short period. And I want to give that to people so that they can experience it. Children especially. I have a godson and he's desperately attention deficit and hyperactivity. It's so bad. He spends some summertime months with me. And when he's on the farm, we might forget to give him his meds because he doesn't need them. He doesn't need them. It's not that I have issues with some pharmacological that kids and meds just no, there's better ways to do it. But literally the longer he's on the farm, the better he gets. Right. And he's like, I don't think I need to take my pills today. And I'm like, well, buddy, are you sure? Yeah, I think I'm okay, Auntie Kay. Okay, well then don't take your meds today. If you get out of control later, you will have to take a timeout and you will have to take your medication but let's see how far we can go. And we've gotten him up to 2 weeks on no meds just from hanging out in the green space. Yeah. My son is a dedicated video gamer. He can't stand video games when he's on the farm. There's so many more neat things to see and look at and do. So you're right. It's wired into us to be out, not only in it, but experiencing it and enjoying it and becoming part of it. Yeah. And I don't think that enough people are aware of just how important it is to spend time in green spaces.
Which is, it's a very strange thing because I of course tend to look at almost everything through the lens of logic. That's just the way my brain works. And we consider what we know about biology, which is a lot. Yes, we have a lot to learn.
So much.
But we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good.
We actually are.
And I mean, we know enough about evolution at this point in time to understand that the environment that a entity, a species, a creature has evolved in determines its function. That's the important part, is the being evolves to suit the environment. Yes. The environment comes first.
And humans evolve so slowly.
Yes.
Because we're tool users, so we adapt our environment as opposed to ourselves. Yeah.
And we've spent all of our evolution minus the last, give or take, 100 years, for the most part. Of course, there was outliers, but pretty much every single human up until the last 100 years existed in nature 99.9% of the time.
Yes.
We had shelter. But that's interesting because even that shelter was built into nature. There was wood stoves. There was you're inside to sleep and maybe eat, but the rest of the time you're outside,
Yep.
right? So
No artificial light, no blue light, no
No.
electricity interrupting the electrical functions of your body,
Yes.
no EMF radiation causing issues. Like, yeah, no, we have, the last 100 years have not been kind to us
yeah,
as a species.
and to think that we exist in a natural environment, and now we're trying to separate ourselves from it as much as possible.
It's a
Think that
disconnect.
there won't be consequences to that. I mean, like you said, we're in a zoo. Go to any zoo and observe any animal, mammal specifically,
Yep.
birds as well. Reptiles are different for some reason, but you observe things that we're at least vaguely genetically related to. Look at what they do in a zoo. They go crazy. They go absolutely
They lose
nuts.
their minds.
Yeah, we do the same. We
They
do the
lose
exact
their
same.
sense of self. They lose their sense of their order in nature. They lose their uniqueness. Women spend enough time together, their menstrual cycles sync up. I tend to find that humans spend enough time together, their mental symptoms, like all of their mentality, all of their thought patterns, all of their processes, all of their what is acceptable and what is not starts to sync up. And that's really dangerous because that mob mentality is so dangerous in humans because we're the most violent species on the planet.
Well, take cities, right? Like you look at a city and every city is obviously different.
Yes.
And of course you go into it and it's different because it looks different in different buildings. But the general vibe of the city,
The energy is the same.
Yeah. Well, with slight differences, like you go to Los Angeles and it feels different being in LA than it does in Calgary than in, I don't know, Tokyo, right? Like the energy of the city has the same sort of high buzz.
Tokyo's frenetic.
Yeah, but there's
LA
this
is like sinful.
there's like a personality to each
Yeah.
city, right? And what I believe is when you move into the personality, and I first learned this when I was learning heart math about heart coherence and sort of how our energetic fields legitimately affect each other. And it's the same thing. It's like you get into a city and eventually the vibe of that city, the energy of that city is going to start determining your personality.
It totally takes you over.
Yeah. And I mean, the example that I always give is, so there's this coherence rule, and if we were to fill this wall behind us with clocks, fill it with clocks, every one of them with a pendulum.
Eventually they will all tick together.
Yeah, and if you put a really big one in the middle and you set
leads.
that, it leads, right? And the same thing goes, is like once you move into a city, you can't help but your coherence match that of the general vibe, right?
Yep.
The same thing occurs, in my opinion, in smaller communities, but with the smaller communities, it's much easier to determine what that rhythm is.
And what it feels like and how they want it to feel. And it's so much easier to influence change. That's probably why I love my little community, is because it's a group of families that really feel the same about a lot of things. And we're almost an eco-village. Inevitably, the organization will be very eco-village-like. But for right now, it's kind of it's a how can we make that happen, because somebody needs to have a business, so I'm going to do it. And we all feel the same on a lot of things. And the feeling, you can tell when someone's disrupted. The whole energy, the whole farm just shifts. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, what if that happens on a bigger scale? When that shift, when that torrent of emotion comes out from an event, it's terrifying that we don't have the ability to step back and reset and get back into fundamentally who and what we are.
To regulate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what wellness practices are. I think it's our way to regulate. I think it's really sad that most people choose to do so in a massively overproduced marketing catchphrase ridden industry, which is what wellness has become. True wellness to me is about like rewilding and eating food. Like, I picked it this morning and now it's in your lunch. Like that's the rewilding experience that I feel like people need, is to reconnect with fundamentally who they are, which requires a lot of silence and a lot of time with yourself and taking away the distractions of the outside world. And I feel like you need to reset your internal systems with really super healthy food and hypernutrients and, eat the dirt. Taste the compost to see if it's ready. Like, don't be afraid of these things that connect you to nature. Because when I'm disconnected from the plant, it's a plant. When I'm connected with the plant, I go, oh, you've lost some leaves and you look like you might need some, maybe you need something. Maybe you need compost, or maybe you need water, or maybe you need to be shifted 5 degrees into better sunlight, right? Whatever the case may be. But when I'm connected to the plant, I recognize what's wrong with the plant. which means when I'm connected to myself, I'm going to recognize what's wrong with myself.
Right.
But we can't do that right now because not only are we disconnected from nature, but we're also disconnecting from ourselves and trying to fit into that huge torrent of whatever is happening within our city-states. And it's scary.
I've been thinking a lot recently about something very similar to that. And it's the buzzword authenticity. And it's unfortunate that these words get buzzed, right?
Yeah.
But it's an important, I believe, it's a very important thing to dwell on, is this idea of authenticity and true expression and what it means to just be 100% you.
Yeah.
And it's possible to do in any environment, certainly, but there's
gets
some
you into
environments.
so much trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's some environments that are much more conducive to this expression, this authentic expression without judgment, without condemnation, right? It sounds like when somebody's on the farm, that's an experience that you're hoping to foster within them. But if we can maybe shift it a little bit back to what your current way of doing this is, because of course you are a massage therapist, you practice reflexology, you practice Thai massage. So maybe could you tell me a little bit about
my self-care?
You're not just yet, but like, what do you do when you're with a client to bring this into a treatment room, or do you bring it into the treatment room?
I try. The easiest way, of course, is just to tell them, why don't you just come to the farm? Just let's stop beating around the bush. I want you to come to the farm. I want you to come and spend a weekend in the dome. I want you to get a Thai massage on Friday when you arrive. I want you to have 2 reflexology and Reiki sessions on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I want to feed you something amazing that we grew out of our own gardens and have a feast experience that reconnects you with yourself. And there's maybe some herbalism stuff that I take advantage of in the cooking. But it's when I'm in practice, my clients and I talk all the time about the need for like authentically being able to say, no, I'm not going to do the homework. Don't bother giving it to me. No, I'm not going to stretch. Okay, well then if you're not going to stretch, then you have to come back and you have to see me more regularly. Like the very, I don't beat around the bush. I can't. I'm too old for that at this point. I'm too old to beat around the bush with them, and I want them to recognize their own responsibility.
Yeah.
So we have really meaningful conversations about, are you actually here to get better, or are you here to mask your symptoms? Are you actually here to find out from someone who has dedicated their life to learning how to make this better for you, how to make this better for you? Or are you just here blowing smoke up both of our butts, trying to figure out how the sunshine's going to make you feel better for a week?
Right.
Like, what's really behind this? And people are, it's my tone of voice a lot of the time, but people are very intimidated by it. Some clients are like, oh, I found my person. And other people are like, you's crazy, I'm out. And I'm good with both of those circumstances. But I refuse to let people think that I'm healing them. And I have very meaningful conversations with some people about, you need to understand where your locus of control is. This has nothing to do with me. I am a stimuli being applied in a scientifically determined manner and an experientially determined manner with thousands of years of tradition and history behind it. And all you have to do is accept it in your own self, and then you'll be fine. And they go, that's too much. And then they get scared, and then they come back about 6 months later, and then we start the work. But I find for me, first you have to recognize, to be my client, to stay with me and to walk this journey with me and to let me help you in the way that I have with the tools that I have. You have to be willing to admit that you did this to yourself.
That's a hard conversation to have.
They hate it. They've always hated it, but I'm too in your face about it for them to avoid it. So we have it. And then either they love me or they hate me. And then we have a cup of tea. And then we have a conversation. And then we talk about the little changes. And usually I end up sending them home with a SCOBY, or I end up having them, why don't you just come back next Wednesday and we'll make some sauerkraut, and you can I need to show you not to be afraid of this. I need to show you how not to be afraid of healing yourself. And so I've got clients who have kombucha cultures from Gloriana, who was my first culture that I started 16 years ago. I have gotten back cultures from Gloriana because fruit flies happen. And what comes back to me as a culture is totally different. The culture takes on the person. And it's like, why don't you bring me your SCOBY so I can look at it and see what's going on with you? Because after you know. And we do a lot of And I probably shouldn't because I'm not a certified nutritionist, but we talk a lot about food. We talk a lot about how the client is going to treat themselves after our session and how to listen to themselves and how to trust their intuition. And it's probably a far more esoteric experience being on my table than it is a scientific one.
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting avenue, because when you get into the world at large of massage therapy, particularly, once you start spending a lot more time with associations and regulatory bodies, it's like, it's so bizarre how fake structured it is.
How far away we've gotten from touch heals.
Exactly. Like, simply touch heals.
Yes.
And the people who practice healing through touch invariably do other things to heal as well.
Yep.
Like, I have yet to have a conversation with a massage therapist who's like, massage is all I do. Period. It's like, I do massage, but what I'm actually also really interested in is working with movement, or working with food, or working with trauma. Or
it's just a gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, because of the way that the structures are, it's like, no, you're a massage therapist, which means if you say the word food, you're in trouble. So I'm
So why don't you come back next Wednesday? And next Wednesday, we're going to have a conversation.
Exactly, right? So finding ways
outside of my scope. Yeah, I work within my other scopes outside of my session. And I always tell people, I have time for consultation on like 45 minutes from now, once you've left my room and you're not my massage client. We can talk about that then. Or I'll stop the session dead and I'll let you get changed. We'll talk downstairs. And then I take them downstairs in my home, and then we sit and we do. No, you're absolutely right. And massage is the gateway drug. Yeah. I started with a 250-hour program because all I wanted to do was, because I started as an esthetician in 2002. So in 2002, I was an esthetician, and because I had great hands, they'd always ask me to do the massage along with the facial. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then one day I figured I should probably actually learn how to give a massage. So I did. My first massage therapy teacher, John Newman, is slandered mercilessly by a lot of the regulatory bodies because he believes that touch heals and that compassionate touches everything. And he took that to the legislature in Alberta and held up regulation in Alberta for 25 years. And I stood right next to him and helped him do it because I believed in what he had to say. Right. But inevitably, the world moves on and the great voices are silenced. So, John, much love. And so that was my first course. But I also took his course recognizing that he preached very, very stridently, know what you do not know. Don't treat what you don't understand. Learn more. This is a stepping stone. This is just a place to start to get you a license and get you on bodies and let you be safe while you're doing it. You're right. And so I came across a car accident and everybody was like, work on the client. And I was like, no. My boss was furious. I was like, no, I'm only a 250-hour therapist. There's no way I can touch this. Also, she should be waiting 72 hours. And also, right? But it was that conversation. And I went, I wanted to help that person. Like, I cried when she left because I was like, no, I have to send you to your doctor, whether you like it or not. I have to know how bad it is, and you might need imaging, so you have to go to the doctor. I can't even ice massage you to help you feel better, and I feel like a jerk sending you away because I know that a quick Reiki session would make you feel better, but I can't even do that because then you won't be able to claim. And if it's as bad as I think it is from the way that you're standing, you have to see your doctor. Right. And I was so upset. And then I decided to take the Mount Royal program. And that was where I met Bob Cross and Hannah Stasny for the first time. They were my instructors at Mount Royal when I did my 1,100 hours. And Dr. Salami, of course. And then eventually they were the reason why I chose Macamee to go back and upgrade for the third time. Taking a massage program for the third time. So I'm still undereducated. Based on the way that John inspired the need to understand what's going on in the body. Yeah. I've done the massage therapy certification program 3 different times. I have 5,000 hours of certifiable training. I don't know a damn thing. Right. But it's a great gateway drug. And it took me through Thai massage, and it took me through all of my other practices, and it took me, like, it's a rabbit hole. And the regulatory bodies are like, you have to stay in this box. And it's like, but look at the universe around the box. There's so much color in life. Yeah. There's so many more things we could learn. When I did Thai massage, we talked about Ayurveda and constitution and energetics and food. And it was like, this is why I wanted to take this program. And it's like, the bodies keep us so I'm an anti-regulatory body person, absolutely 500%. They can be as mad at me for that as they want. But I don't believe that we should all be put in a box.
Right. Yeah, I think that freedom to explore one's healing capacity is super important. And you mentioned like, here's a way to interact with a client in a way that's safe.
Yes.
Like safe and effective.
Safe and effective.
Like good.
That's all it needs to be.
That's what it needs to be.
That's where you start.
But beyond that, you use the word gateway drug, and I think it's a gateway for both therapist and for client. And when I first started, so I never really chose massage. That wasn't something like, this is what I want to do. I chose acupuncture and I chose traditional Chinese medicine. I ended up in massage begrudgingly.
Like, I've heard your story.
Yeah, I didn't really
I don't want this.
No. But I ended up there, and I spent enough time in the massage world that I can't say I fell in love with it, but it became part of my world.
Well, I'm super glad you were, because you're one of my favorite teachers.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And there came a point, maybe like 5-6 years into my experience as teaching, when it hit me like, wow, I don't actually care. Like,
I could do this
so
or not,
easy.
Whatever.
Yes, like these things that I'm teaching, it's easy. Now, I cared about the students, of course. I cared about that. But like teaching somebody how to cross fiber friction tennis elbow, it's like, this is boring.
This is really
But what I found interesting is I very quickly realized that the massage therapy industry, it is the primary exposure so many people have to wellness. Yes. People won't talk to a nutritionist. They probably won't go to their family doctor.
Oh, no, they're terrified to ask their family doctor because their doctor sucks.
They're not going to go to an acupuncturist. They're likely not going to go to a yoga class. Like when we look at the average person and we say, here's a list of 100 different wellness things you could go into. Yeah. Which one would you do? Which one have you done? Massage is like, that's what people do,
everybody.
Right? Yeah. So it is the gateway for clients. And what I find so important and something I'm incredibly passionate about is educating massage therapists on how to tiptoe their clients into a greater realm of wellness, right?
I agree.
Because like this is, you're the person people are going to get well. And to think all we're doing, I shouldn't say that. Let me reemphasize, because I genuinely believe that touch heals. It's not all we're doing is putting our, like, that's massive.
Well, my soul is reaching out to your soul through the contact of my hands, and then the universe of the energy is being conduited through me because I have learned to accept the fact that I can help people heal, which is like this far away from like 2nd degree Reiki, which is so funny because so many therapists are like, I don't believe in invisible dragons, and I'm like, well, it's okay because they believe in you, so you'll be fine. Because I'm a Reiki master as well, and I have been since I was a kid. My mom attuned me when I was like 9. I've been doing Reiki for longer than I've been doing anything else. Right. And it's like, I ask people sometimes, I'm like, oh, your hands feel so good. And I'm like, oh, my palms are just itching. I need to talk to you about Reiki. Like, screw it. I'm just going to do it while I massage you. And we're just going to sit and work and be in this space. And if you ask me why it was so awesome later, I'll tell you what it was. Sometimes I'll work a lot of the things in. I've had clients walk out of my treatment room and handed them a bag of tea and been like, so while we were working, I really got the feeling that you need this. Please take this home and drink it. This is how you steep it. This is how you drink it. This is how you use it. And usually they come back and they go, oh my God, it tastes so gross. And I go, perfect. It's supposed to.
Oh,
when it stops tasting bad, you don't need it anymore. And I learned that from my favorite acupuncturist. But yeah, it's a total gateway. Massage is something that everyone can be comfortable with. And if you're not comfortable being naked in a room with a person, and I have to tell my students that all the time, like, you do understand that you signed up to touch naked people all day. Like, the reality of your job is, and there's going to be power dynamics, and there's going to be interesting power struggles, and there's going to be people who completely sexualize you, and there's going to be people who totally don't respect your knowledge, and there's going to be people who think that you're like, it rubs the lotion on its skin, and that's why you're a man in the industry. Like, these are the realities that we face. Yeah. And then there are the realities that go and, well, they coincide with that. And it's awesome because it's like, and you're a healer, and you're a person who cares, and you're a sympathetic listener. And now you're playing the role of psychiatrist. And all of the things that happen in that room with a client, there's so much variance. We have to be open to our gifts. We have to discover our gifts. We have to explore our gifts. And I love it when like young massage therapists ask questions like, what course should I take next? And my answer is always, what have you received? Have you had acupuncture? Have you done a lot of yoga training? Have you received reflexology? Have you received Reiki? Have you done whatever? Have you done Abhyanga and traditional Indian head massage? Have you gone for a Champissage Indian head massage? Have you seen a herbalist? Have you, like, where have you been? And they go, well, have you done all of that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did it. And then I certified most of it. And I think you should too. So it's, teaching a young student where to find their curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taught. Well, I took a course to learn how to organize information to teach better. And the course was amazing. And one of the things that it taught me is that students don't understand that you get, like, this is your intro.
Mm-hmm.
This is the concept that I'm going to drop in front of you. And then what you do with that concept as a massage therapist is where you're going to go with like other education afterwards.
Yeah. And I think there's an important distinction to be made between there's a teacher, there's an educator, there's a mentor. And I do differentiate the energy that each of these roles provides to, we'll call them the student, right?
60,000%, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, when a teacher is a person who can stand up and portray information, complex information in a way that's digestible.
Relatable and digestible, yes.
And the student walks away going, I learned something and it was valuable and I'm grateful for that experience.
Yes.
An educator is the person who can do that and they're doing it in a way that inspires a student to be more, to do more, that they leave the class and they're like, wow, I learned something.
I want more of that.
Oh, this is exciting. And then you get the mentor who is like maybe the educator but a mentor is, I believe, the person who is like, everything we just went through, this was training.
That's the science.
Now I'm going to help you
the rest.
Figure out which part of all of this suits you in a way that you're going to be able to manifest your talents and your true nature in a way that has the maximal benefit to yourself and to the people that you're going to be working with.
Yes.
And I think most of the time, education is full of instructors or whatever one step lower than that is. No, forgive me if it sounds rude, but I think one institute that I worked in was not the case. Everybody there was an educator, not a teacher. They were an educator. But so many of the institutes, and quite frankly, most of the massage institutes are full of teachers or something below teacher.
Or RMTs who want to be teachers, who are passionate about the industry, but they don't, they were not mentored enough to be mentors themselves, but they long to be.
Which is fair.
It's fair. That's what got me started. And then I started looking, because I just generally I'd have a client, she's a teacher. And so I went to her and I was like, so what did you learn while you were in school? And she started talking about information coordination and how to build courses and how to create course outlines and how to convey information and how to, you have to break it down to its simplest. You don't get to go too deep into it. Don't do that. That's a trap. Do not run down the rabbit hole. And I went, I don't know that I could do that.
Right.
Like, I have to have the rabbit hole. I have to have the rabbit hole.
If you go through the rabbit hole, you lose people.
But you lose people.
The rabbit hole is the mentorship.
Yes.
That's
so you have to first deliver and then you have to wait and then go back to the rabbit hole later. And so I took a course in how to do adult education, and 90% of it was how to edit yourself so that you're not a mentor. And then of course now I'm teaching and I'm at a wonderful institute and we're doing a really good job and I'm super proud of my team and we regularly update our courses and we're we really care about our students. It's a phenomenal place.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so we're working with these students in these groups and it's phenomenal. And then there's this little part in the back of my head that goes, but we could teach more. And it's not enough. So maybe I need to do that for myself. Maybe I need to just go develop that course and go as far down the rabbit hole as I want to.
Right.
And maybe it would be awesome to do that in a 30-foot dome on the farm. Just because spending 2 days learning Reiki in the woods as opposed to 2 days learning Reiki in the local community center is a magnitude of difference.
Yeah. The educational experience is profound.
Yes.
I mean, we could go back to your comment about living in a box. And I mean, I don't even want to tiptoe into the discussion of the failing educational institutes. So let's just leave that one out.
Yeah,
but
we can do that.
When we talk about the environment that one is educated in, changing it, even subtle changes to it, make a huge difference in the receptivity of the educator. So I can only imagine if you're educating somebody on being in tune with nature, doing that in nature versus doing that in the city or even a town, right? Like
Well,
choosing
and it's not a
education.
gradual thing either.
Yeah.
It's
that's
not
a good point.
gradual. No, it's you're immersed from moment one. It's like you get out of your car, give me your phone,
Mhm.
and I turn it off and I set it down in the car and I go, okay, that can stay there. Now come with me, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, no, just shut it off. It's fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
You don't need it here.
Mhm.
You don't need to connect here.
Hmm.
I mean, the dome is one of the only places on the farm where you can actually get a solid internet signal, which is really cool. But the rest of the valley is primarily like there's no cell phone signal getting in somehow. It's magic. But then you cross the creek and you end up at Beulah and suddenly there is signal, which is my son's favorite place to hang out for some reason.
Weird.
Crazy that. But after a few hours, he shuts his phone off and he strolls out into the woods. But I lined Beulah purposefully with aluminium, aluminium recovered Reflectex, so that you can't get cell signal in the dome.
That's
it's
so cool.
spotty.
Yeah.
But that also means there's no EMF radiation, which means your whole body gets a whole break, which means you can literally reconnect with just yourself.
Yeah.
I find most people show up to the dome and they walk in and they're like, oh, this is so weird because it's a round structure. And then they start to settle in a little bit. And then if you go back an hour or two later, guaranteed they are sprawled out somewhere in a complete state of rest. And like you didn't even realize how badly you needed that sleep. You did not realize how badly the silence was going to just knock you right out. And you're like in like hard REM reset mode. Your whole brain is scrambled being in the space. And then you can wake up and step outside and it's just an ocean of green. And it's like, this is how humans are meant to live. And that reset changes, especially when we're doing like Reiki classes. Because I'll attune someone in the dome, and 9 times out of 10, when I attune you in the dome, before we go back outside and go back to doing all the wonderful things that we do, that person needs a 15-minute nap. So it's like, I'm just going to attune everyone and let you all have your naps in the dome before we go any further. There will be no lesson. You will be attuned and then we will lesson because then you will be receptive and capable of understanding. And I think that that's true for everyone. Everyone needs to be immersed. Everyone needs to dive in as fully as possible to the new experience of whatever it is that they're about to take on. And if you can do that while you take the rest of the zoo and the noise off, I don't care what it is. I think that's better. I think that the very first thing you should do when you walk into a massage class is one of the things that I experienced, which is, okay, everybody put your hands on everybody else's shoulders. Make a chain. This is the change.
Right.
This is the shift. And everyone's looking for a shift. And it's a buzzword, but everyone's looking for a shift. Well, you get that in green. You don't get it in brown. You don't get it in gray. You don't get it in black. You don't get it in glass. You get it in green. Shifts happen in the green.
Our eyes are more sensitive to shades of green than any other color.
Funny,
Interestingly
isn't it?
enough. Yeah.
And we live on all kinds of phytonutrients that come from plants, and herbs heal us, and the endocannabinoid receptors mean that we can enjoy all of the benefits of the crazy nature as well as the normal nature, like the healthy.
Yeah.
Like we're
evolved for it.
We're designed for this. And we're so disconnected right now.
Yeah.
I think that's tragic.
I think there's a solution, and it sounds like, what you're doing is contributing vastly to that solution.
I like to think that I'm like part of the solution light, because it's still very glampy.
Yeah.
And it's still very all the modern conveniences.
Hey, well, that's because we're in a modern world.
But people won't experience nature without it. I have a girlfriend who refuses to come camping unless she has a flush toilet. And so my answer to her was, well, why don't you stay in my tent? And she's like, what's your tent like? And I'm like, my tent has a furnace and a flush toilet.
Right.
And she went, okay, maybe I could stay with you in the trailer. And I was like, yeah, you don't even have to go outside. Just come and sit in the trailer surrounded by the green. And she's done it twice. And she's messaged me recently and she's like, maybe a third day trip to the green.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I think that'd be cool.
I think that's fine, because the reality is the reality.
Do the light.
That's the world we're living in.
Yeah.
So to try and reject it and be like, this is bad and this is good, it just doesn't work that way. It's like, this is what it is and this is what it is. And we need to try and find a way to be okay with the reality of the fact that we are so connected to our technology.
Yeah.
And individuals who are going to go to nature, they're still going to want that. And good, bad, I don't know. Doesn't matter. The fact is they do want that. And we need to find a way to work with that.
to let them sit around the fire pit and enjoy it, and then have movie time on the side of the giant white Quonset hut across the field.
Yeah.
And we can all enjoy the beautiful sounds of nature and the movie.
What's the matter with
and
that?
the fire,
right? Yeah,
and the hot chocolate, and the and the tabletop s'mores. We can all enjoy all of this.
That sounds great.
It doesn't have to be polar, but I think that most people, they really look at wellness as something that is very polarized.
Yeah, it's this or.
Yeah, it's the or. It's not the and.
Yeah,
and I think that we need more ands.
Yeah, because that's kind of life. I mean, in TCM, what they always teach us, as I'm sure you're familiar with, is you learn about yin. And you learn about yang. You learn yin and yang. You don't learn yin or yang, right?
It's and.
It's and. And what they teach us very early on is they educate us. No, we'll go to my 3-step structure. They teach us first off the theoretical concept about yin and yang.
Yep.
And then they educate us in what paradox is.
Yes.
And then ideally, if you have a really great institute, they're going to mentor you in embodying this idea of paradox.
Yes.
And my opinion is, and more so every single day and in every interaction I have, is like, without the ability to 100% be okay with paradox, with two seemingly opposite realities both being true,
yes,
we're going to struggle big time. So I think it is that end. It's like, you can have this and you can have that. The balance of them, which one you have more or less of, that's an active negotiation process. But the ors,
very much, yes.
Yeah, the ors are devastating, and they lead to so much guilt, and they lead to so many people being like, if I can't do this absolute, then why even bother, right? It's just the mentality of the or statement is just not conducive to wellness.
Yeah, but you can do it absolute. You can come out to the farm and you can completely immerse yourself in an offline, off-grid experience. And you can use the flush toilet in my trailer if that's what you need to do. And you can log in on the internet and post an Instagram about how great this day is. And you can harvest your own eggs for breakfast and learn how to grow your own food. All of it can be true at once. And some people are like, oh my God, it's so 5-star, it's so glamping. And other people are like, it's so rustic, it's scary. And I don't know. I think if you put 300 people in a room and you ask them what wellness meant to them, every single person will have a very different and very unique and very original perspective on what wellness actually is. In my opinion, wellness is understanding that you are a constantly evolving organism. You are a stardust-powered skeleton riding around in a meat suit held together with spider webs. You need to chill out. You need to experience being in your meat suit, and you need to stop being afraid of your meat suit. Because so many people are like, oh my God, if it hurts and I go to a doctor, the doctor's going to give me a pill. Oh my God, I hurt, and if I go to a massage therapist, it's going to hurt more.
Right.
But it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. And your doctor doesn't have to give you a pill. And you don't have to order from McDonald's tonight. You could instead order from Fatburger because it's slightly healthier, right? Or you could make your own burger, but you don't know how, but that's okay because we have YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. And so like it's people are, I find that right now in this disconnected world, I find people are really scared to discover who they are. They're afraid of authenticity. They're afraid of it. They don't understand it. It's a concept that they don't understand because everything that they're being bombarded with in the world around them is telling them that authenticity is ephemeral. And it's hard to obtain unless someone guides you in that direction. And all the wellness, buzzy, catchword nonsense that goes on in our industry, which I think is a shame. And then there's those brief moments where you encounter someone and they're like, let me make this easy for you. Let me make caring for you simple. I had a girlfriend once and she was like, there's no way you cook every meal from scratch. And I went, I've always cooked every meal from scratch. Like I grew up on a farm. We didn't have restaurants to go to. So you learn how to make pizza dough in 5 minutes and you learn how to make your own cheese. And like, she's like, there's no way. And I went, so you're spending the night then? And she went, what? And I went, I can shift this table over and pull out the inflatable bed and you can spend the night and you can start with me tomorrow morning. And we did sourdough waffles and bacon for breakfast with fruit cups that I cut fresh. And then she was blown away because I culture my own yogurt. So I grabbed my own yogurt out of the fridge and I made my yogurt dip. And she's watching me work and she's like, oh my God, you really do everything from scratch. And I went, yeah, but I grew up on a farm with parents that taught me that. And so I make it look easy.
Yeah.
I make sourdough look so easy. And I watch videos online and I'm like, how do you make a better sourdough? Because I'm watching homesteading videos and like, well, that's a cool idea. And maybe I could incorporate that. And then I come across this sourdough baking video and I'm like, why did you make it so complicated?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you people really like to make things hard. It's not hard. It's not hard to take care of yourself. It's not hard to look after your body.
It's time. It's time.
It's prioritizing.
Yeah, it's prioritizing, yeah.
It's prioritizing. My husband very often says, I don't have time for that. And I look at him and I go, you mean it's not a priority?
Right.
And he goes, what do you mean? Well,
fair enough.
No, it's not a priority. And I go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's a priority for me.
Mm-hmm.
Would I rather make lotion today or do my dishes? Would I rather bake my sourdough or would I rather hang out in front of the TV? I'm not saying that, my wellness model in my life and my whole food diet and my everything from scratch and my as organic as possible tree hugging leaf licking self is perfect every day. Because I got to tell you, last night we ordered barbecue from a really crappy barbecue place and I licked the barbecue bowl clean.
Oh, I get it.
Because it was the sugar.
Yeah.
And my husband's looking at me and he's like, you just ate white bread. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, and sugar. And I went, yeah.
And it was delicious.
And it was so good. And I'm going to pay for it tomorrow, but it was so good right now. Yeah. And he's like, you're just weird. And I'm like, I know. But I don't ever consider myself a hypocrite. I could make a jug of sweet tea and chug it and use like white processed nasty sugar in it. And I'm totally good with it because I know that on the flip side of that, I've built up the healthy practices in my life so that my body can handle those moments. Yeah. But I think that people have started to justify the unhealthy moments and they forget that they have to have balance. Yeah. There's no and for people today. Yeah. So I think that my whole practice kind of revolves around trying to remind people that there's an and. You can be very science-minded and get Reiki energy healing because the Reiki that you feel from me is something that helps you. And you can eat all the white bread and eat at the restaurant at lunch and have all the garbage Chinese food smothered in all the delicious MSG. And you can go home and make it yourself and it's just as good.
So that kind of leads me to the question that I believe you mostly answered, but I'm going to see if we can hone in on
it. Yes, please do.
So the thing that I'm curious about, particularly considering the fact that you've been practicing since what you said, about 7, you said?
I've been practicing Reiki since I was 7 or 8.
7 or 8. So I mean, you've been one variety of practitioner or another, or of course a conglomeration of them for basically your whole life.
40 years. 40 years of practice.
Based on all of these years of practice, if you were to really try and hone it in on like one thing, like what's the thing that makes a practitioner great?
Oh, it's so funny because the only word that comes to mind is authenticity. I am what I am and I practice how I practice. I don't put myself in a box. I don't ever want to see any of my students put themselves in a box. I don't ever want to see a practitioner. I hate the word, I'm a Reiki healer. No, you're not. But you practice Reiki. I'm a massage therapist. No, you're not. You practice massage. You practice massage. You practice medicine. You practice Ayurveda. You practice TCM. You practice all of these things. You are always a student. So be authentic in that and just say, this is what I practice.
What does practice mean to you?
It's the thing that you do that gets you out of bed every day. And it's something that you are endlessly curious about and you're willing to explore every little nook and cranny and corner of. And it's like breath. So I practice Reiki because it's like breath to me. It is so easy. It comes to me so simply. And it's a physical manifestation every time. I've never had a client look at me and be like, I didn't feel that, which is so common in Reiki. I've never had a client not say, whoa, I could feel that. And to me, that's just like, cool, I dialed it in. I tuned into you right. Awesome. Okay, I'm doing a good thing today. It gets me out of bed. It makes me excited to see my clients. When I look at practicing massage therapy, even with my sprained shoulder right now, I still look at my clients and just be like, I'm so excited to be inside of your body and feeling what you've got going on and figuring out how to make that better for, like, it's a joy to get somebody who's like complicated. It's like, without it, And I've been without massage before. I spent some years without practicing anything at all because I was like, I'm burnt out. I'm done. I've had enough. I have to get out. And I always came back. And I always came back. And I always went, okay, what did I forget? I have to go back to school. What did I forget? And it was never a struggle to make that decision. It was always just when I practice something, it needs to be a part of me.
I get it.
Fundamentally, this is a thing that I cannot be without in my life. I cannot be without massage therapy. I cannot be without reflexology. I cannot watch a person walk down the street in pain and not want to walk up to them and go, can I help you?
Right. It's just part of who you are.
I'm going to charge you.
Yeah.
Like it's really, it's about the money, but I have the skills and the ability and I think I could help you. Would you like to try? And I think that is a practice, is you practice every single day the mental jumping jacks required to do the thing that keeps you alive. And for me, that's like 9 different modalities because I'm endlessly curious. Yeah. So but my favorite is reflex. And I don't do nearly enough of it. And I've determined that not enough people do enough of it. So everybody needs some reflexology in their life.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to understand it better. And green time. Yeah.
That seems like a beautiful place to tie a little bow on this chit chat.
It makes me want to breathe.
Yeah.
It's 16 years of practice now. And I don't think I've ever defined it for anybody or myself. But yeah, no, I am where I am and I do what I do because it's my breath.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.